Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Tim, Braden, Second Legacy. This is 2025, and this is not what I expected on my bingo card. We are going to talk about a very interesting coincidence of very unfortunate events from between New York, New Orleans, and now a Trump Tower. All of these things seem to have some sort of connection. We're going to dive into all of it right now, and let's just say out in front, terrorist activity where innocents are killed. We're gonna throw a no bueno on that one. If we could stop that, that would be great. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on if you are here for that freedom. And with that said, Tim, this is a very interesting development, that all these things that keep on happening, right? It started and popped off in New Orleans as a horrible event and attack. Then it added one more. Then it added one more. This is really getting interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. There's an interview on Sean Ryan. Sarah Adams, is that her last name?
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And she was talking about cells in the United States and all sorts of stuff. I got started on that interview after I saw people talking about it, like saying she kind of predicted all this was going to happen, saying it could happen in 2025, talking about wave attacks and things like that. And then lo and behold, we see something like this happen. And so, you know, I don't know, man, it was shocking, but then again, we've seen this happen before, and we're going down the same path of, it seems to be incompetence by our own government, right?
Yes.
Barricades that were supposed to be up that day magically weren't up, and somehow the terrorists knew about it and drove around, got up on the sidewalk and got into the populated area. I mean, it just seems like so many of these things keep happening that shouldn't happen. You know, like Epstein, the cameras go off in his cell and then he winds up, dying mysteriously. And it's like all these things just keep happening, and we'll talk about it, and then we just go radio silent and move on to the next thing. It's drones. It's some weird fog in the northern states. Then it's, a terrorist attack. Then next week it'll be something else. And we just keep moving on down the road. Yeah, we just go from one crazy event to the next, I don't know.
Right. We don't ever solve anything. And that's,
no.
I think that is a very big issue that we have. And honestly, it's interesting you bring that up because, guys, we haven't pre-filmed this conversation, right? So, or pre-planned out this conversation. So what's interesting about this, Tim, is the left, particularly when mass instances of terror or murder or evil happen, they always go down the road of do nothing Republicans, blah, 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 do this. No one did anything. It's not Republicans and it's not Democrats doing they didn't do anything. As a country, we are paralyzed because we do not choose A or B road. We are so split 50% down the middle that we can't organize to correct any issue. I personally think that's factored into a lot of these attacks. Personally, I think that because we are so paralyzed, because we have no unifying force, that's, I think, where we're at.
And it seems like in the last few years, our government and government agencies have gotten off going down, diversity, equity, inclusion paths and turning their backs to their actual jobs. And it just seems to me that the emphasis, we see our military unraveling. We see our agencies like the FBI and stuff like that, used to be the premier law enforcement agency in the world, just being crippled by gross incompetence and silliness. Yes. And in some cases, actions that some might define as criminal. So it's kind of crazy to see where we are today. And unfortunately, if we don't right this ship very quickly, things like this potentially could start to happen even more frequently. And that's my biggest concern. And that's what Sarah was talking about in that
interview, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you watch an interview and you go, well, you kind of get taken in by that. Well, this is America and we haven't been attacked really in the same way that we were in 9/11 since 9/11. So we're kind of safe over here. And then boom, we get hit with reality. Right. And, yeah.
Well, we should probably look at that interview and we should do an analysis on the interview. Just you and I kind of look down and say, okay, hold on, that checks, it doesn't check. I think that'd be an interesting one. Guys, let us know in the comments if you want us to do that. But you bring up an interesting point, Tim. I think that we are so rudderless at the top, and I'm not saying an individual president, right? I'm talking about our institutions, our overall government, our overall population is being led by a class of people that has no ability to lead. They only have the ability to politic. I think that is a very important thing that's translating down through all the agencies you're talking about, whether it's the FBI, the ATF, the DOJ, whatever. insert letter bureaucracy here. I think what we're seeing is a complete ineptitude that is coming from people who are not leaders at the top, and it's going down because the people in the middle are realizing the way they progress is by being a politician, not by being effective. I think that is an incredibly important assessment. But as we go into this, guys, this is an interesting one. First, it started off with New Orleans, and we had a horrible incident there with a truck. The next thing that we saw, a very short time frame, was a Tesla Cybertruck exploding at a Trump hotel. And now you have another occurrence this morning being classified and investigated as a terrorism attack, where it was actually a mass shooting by 3 or 4 individuals opening fire on random people and then running into the darkness in New York. And they're investigating that as a terrorist attack, not as gang violence. Okay, it could be gang violence. Lots of things can happen. We don't know all the details yet. But Tim, as we're looking at this, the big theme that really bothers me about this, all of these things were evil co-opting our freedoms and privileges against us in order to basically perpetrate their evil. Now, politicians will say, "Ooh, opportunity to take something away. You're going to take away cars. You can take away gasoline. You can take away fireworks. You tried to take away guns. That didn't work out." I mean, that's the part that's so crappy. They use our freedom against us. Planes, for example.
Yeah, the incident that took place in New Orleans, it's kind of weird because I believe we lost 15 people in that attack.
Yes,
and
we did.
Over 30 were injured. But from the news reports I read that evening when all that was transpiring, was that the driver then jumped out of the truck and engaged with police in a gunfight. Now I've
heard mixed reports on that.
Right. So, but I haven't gotten a clear picture on that either, other than 2 officers went to the hospital and are okay. They're expected to survive. Mm-hmm. But what's suspiciously absent in those early reports of the perpetrator exchanging gunfire with police is that the Davy Hoggs of the world and the Giffords of the world weren't out there that I saw.
Not a peep.
Saying, "It's the guns."
Not a peep. And they haven't said anything with this New York thing, or at least that I've seen. The filming of
I haven't
this,
seen
just
it
so
either.
you know, guys,
I have not seen it
yet.
yet.
This is 10:21 in the morning Central Time, so 11:20 a.m. on the 2nd of January, just for a timestamp. I personally have not seen any of the usual suspects do exactly what Tim's saying. Now, maybe they did it while we filmed this. I'm going to give an open door credit, but I have not seen anything. To Tim's point.
The last thing that Giffords posted was 23 hours ago, and it was a Happy New Year wish. And before that, it was December 30th, so well before that happened.
Right.
Anyway,
and
sorry.
so, no, you're good. And the interesting thing about this, before we go into all the things that we like, the little talking points here, Biden said something last night, and I mentioned this in my video. Biden said something that really irritated me about this incident when, there was an ISIS flag inside the truck and the guy literally put out videos saying he wanted to kill people in the name of ISIS because he's been radicalized. And then Biden comes out and says, "Well, let's not jump to conclusions."
Yeah, right.
Well, wait a minute. Hold the phone. Because I seem to remember, Tim, every time that there's a mass shooting, whether it's gang violence or whatever, we hear immediate conclusions jump to. Whether it's guns are the number 1 killer of children in the United States was the proven lie, or we need an assault weapons ban now when an assault weapon wasn't used. We need back bans now, which didn't exist. I mean, literally, they don't even wait for the news cycle to start before they start doing it and jumping to conclusions. And even Biden. And now Biden's like, "Well, let's not jump to conclusions." Well, what's different between this one and those, I wonder?
Yeah, I know. And I just looked at Davy Hoggs' X page, and he hasn't posted anything since December 17th. So
that one doesn't surprise me, though. But you know why? I think he's running for vice chair of the DNC.
Yeah, he's going to be a little bit more guarded. Do you think?
I think he's trying to neuter his posts so they don't use anything against him to get control of the DNC. That's what I think.
Yeah, could be. It's just interesting that they're silent, especially given what took place in Queens, right? Mm-hmm. It seems so odd. It's almost as if, I don't know. I don't even know what it's as if. It's just so odd that they would remain silent throughout this entire episode. Yeah.
The whole thing's weird.
And then when you start taking a look at the individual events, like you take a look at what took place in New Orleans, and we have the whole issue of the barricades magically not being up that night, and then him somehow getting around them. Then you have the Cybertruck episode outside of Trump Hotel, and fireworks from a guy that was special forces, probably had official training in IEDs and things like that, but he chose fireworks and propane in the bed of a truck, and he pulled it up
weird.
outside of a building that had nobody around it, and it went off. And they're saying somebody died in the truck. I'm assuming it's him. I haven't heard one way or the other.
But that's the thing, the vagueness.
It's so weird.
So vague and weird.
But I mean, fireworks? Really?
It's bizarre, but kind of going to that. So we touched on the Queens thing. More will be developing, so make sure you guys check back, because again, when this amount of weird happens all in one little tight little area, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. If we go over to the next one, Dr. Slides from Brian Krasenstein, this is an interesting one, Tim. Now this goes to the regular suspects. He said, and this is a very important distinction point because this guy is just asinine. Are Republicans going to start attacking former military members now that the New Orleans and Cybertruck attacks were carried out by veterans? Okay. It's not difficult. Watch this, Tim. Are you ready? Are you buckled up to see how I dodge this nuance? Hey, killing people is bad. Wow. That was really difficult. Oh, look, he has military and veteran background. Okay, guess what? Killing people is still bad. Tim, did you hear me okay? Did I stutter? Was it hard? Killing people still bad. Whether you serve this country or you didn't serve this country, whether you are have allegiance to a foreign terror group or you are just some disgruntled kid on bad things. Yeah, guess what? All of those things still bad. Interesting, right. Isn't it?
But I mean, what a strange thing to say. Are Republicans going to start attacking former military members now that they know that two of the attackers were military and whatever? So why would you say that? And it's like saying, well, Americans, an American committed a murder, so now we're going to attack Americans. What's he talking about here?
Well, so what I think it is our early reports that this individual came across the border. That was early rumor mill stuff. I didn't touch it.
Yeah,
but I think that is probably part of the angle where he's saying that Republicans went with, or conservatives or rights individuals, like I would throw us in that bucket. I think that he's saying that, well, since they said it came across the border, therefore they're attacking immigrants. So therefore It's a blame shift. Like, no, the truck came over the border. This individual was an American veteran. Stop obfuscating the point to try to make political hay. It's stupid.
Well, that's all they're doing. And I mean, it's asinine to say that. Okay, so that's what he's doing, is trying to draw some sort of a parallel to the fact that early reporting. And I do remember that, the early reports that it came across Eagle Pass or something like that, and this person was not an American citizen. It turns out he was an American citizen, born right here and raised in the United States, and even served in the United States military. So yeah, I mean, that's typical nonsense from those people, right? This is just him engagement farming and trying to be controversial, and that doesn't help anything. Yeah, I mean, he's just being himself. I mean, he needs to go back to selling because I think he's probably better at that than political commentary.
We were doing so good.
Allegedly, according to another ex poster. I don't know for a fact.
That's a separate ex poster. We didn't actually say it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't care what the sisters say. I really don't.
Well, that's fair, but it does translate into a certain it translates into a certain overall environment observation. Yeah. Okay, so this next one, Dr. Slides, I find this one fascinating. This kind of goes back to what Tim was just saying. So the Cybertruck explosion, the alleged, again, this is all allegedly because we were not there. It's all coming out in a leak. 37-year-old Army veteran, this person. Here's what's interesting. Reportedly, they were on the same military base, the New Orleans driver and this guy with the fireworks and the gasoline canisters in the Tesla truck. Also special. No, excuse me. You said this is special forces. So special forces, and he's believed to set off the explosives in the back of the truck. Now, the connections are questionable. We don't know if they're connected, but them serving on the exact same base and sharing a background in the military and having an action on the exact same day, that's interesting to begin the conversation. Would you agree with that?
If all of this is true, it is so incredibly odd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so hard to digest that two guys would find each other at Fort Bragg,
become radicalized effectively.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, guys, this is where airborne and Rangers and things like that train. It seems odd to me that two American soldiers would find each other on this base for the time that they were together. I don't think it was all that long. We don't really know. And then somehow they become so close that they decide, you know what, we're going to carry out a terrorist attack in the United States, and we're going to be partners in this. And you hit here and I'll hit here. It just seems so odd to me. Mm-hmm. And then you get into the fireworks and the Tesla truck and the Trump Tower and everything that happened or didn't happen in New Orleans. It seems so odd. And I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. Every since I was a kid, even before the internet was a thing, when the Challenger blew up, the conspiracy theories were flying back then, just through word of mouth. And so I've lived my entire life, with all the conspiracy theories. And many times I think it's just a bunch of noise that takes away from the seriousness and the gravity of the situation that just happened. But this just seems so odd to me. It doesn't add up. I want to see all the facts if we can get them, because it just doesn't add up.
We'll continue to follow it. And if all these developments start to come out, which I think they're going to, we will definitely follow it. But I want to point something out that's interesting about this, Tim, because, and then we'll kind of tie it all the information back together. Dr. Slides, will you go to the fourth one? This is from the Libs of TikTok. There's an interesting picture here. Yeah, right there. Just leave it there. So Tim, you had said something about fireworks being an odd choice in an earlier part of this episode, right? Like you thought it was very interesting. Okay. So look at that image, and right next to the Cybertruck, while it's on fire at the Trump doors, the glass is still intact. I just noticed that. All the glass, on the actual hotel, the glass is still intact, 10 feet away from an exploding vehicle.
Dude, they were firecrackers.
No. That's what I mean. So to your point, that's not a area of effect beyond 2 feet.
No. So you have the Cybertruck, which people literally take them out and shoot them to show how tough their side panels are. And he put fireworks in the bed of the truck, so you have at least 2 layers of stainless steel, I believe, the bodies are made of, on both sides. Right? Yeah. And plus any material that might be between those panels. And they have the fireworks down inside. I saw people say there's fireworks and propane canisters down in there, all of which, if it's going to go off, is going to go up and out. It's going to take the path of least resistance, right? Mm-hmm. It's just going to funnel that stuff straight up. You would think a special forces operator would know that if the intent in packing fireworks into the bed of that truck was to hurt other people.
You just nailed it. You just nailed it. It's the intent. So, you nailed it.
So again, this doesn't make sense to me at all.
No, there's very weird. Like, all of this is very odd. Now, there's 2 different layers here. Okay, so, and this is where we're going to kind of tie all this stuff together. We have 3 events that we're talking about right now, all investigated as terrorist activity or terrorist related. Again, this is all early investigation. You had the truck, which killed 15 people with an ISIS flag on the back of it. Very obviously a terrorist attack. You had the Tesla truck being loaded with fireworks and gasoline, and the blast being redirected up, so much so that the glass doesn't even break in windows next to the exploding vehicle. And then after that, you have a mass shooting perpetrated by 3 to 4 individuals on foot, firing into a crowd and then running off into the darkness. Okay, all of these things, they happened on the same night.
Yeah.
There's something is so odd here. And we just have to, honestly, dude, I think we just have to continue to follow this, because there's something here. But I'll tell you what's not here. The connections between they rented the vehicles from the same application, that's pointless. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's a user-based app. That doesn't matter at all. The fact that they wanted to kill people matters a significant amount. But again, this doesn't make sense. Why were those barricades down in a number 1 top tier event? It just doesn't. None of it makes sense, man. I think that's the best way to describe it. Why would a special forces operator use firecrackers
for an IED that didn't hurt?
Why would they both be from the same base?
How do they meet at Fort Bragg? How do they wind up there at the same time at the same base? Yeah, I mean, again, so much stuff, and this is going to feed conspiracy theories like crazy.
Oh, I mean, if you take all 3 of these.
If you take a look at the image on the left, another thing I saw people talking about, the image on the left of the Ford Lightning truck, they're showing pink on the rifle of the guy wearing green, OD green, closest to the
Mm-hmm.
camera. And then you have the officer in uniform in front of him. He has red all over his back. And then you see a cast of red on the ground. And the first thing I thought of when I saw this is just low quality image sensor, like a security camera, something
100%.
like that. And just red lights. There's emergency vehicles there. You can see the red lights of the tail of the truck.
Right.
And it's just a cast of red. I've seen similar things in poor quality images before. But the conspiracy theories are flying. What's this pink mist? What was all this? Oh my gosh, it's on the hat of the trooper, the campaign cover. It's on it's light, but the conspiracy theories are flying, and it's only going to get more crazy. And the problem with people circulating all these crazy theories is it's hard to get to the truth when the majority of the conversation is around things like red light cast on shirts.
Right.
And being some mysterious mist.
Or the link between the two rented vehicles from an app. Like all of these things, like to your point, that was very well said. All of these things don't make sense to be added and thrown into the mix. Like, I know everyone wants to have a conversation piece in this, but even look at the way that we're covering this. We're covering this extremely high level, very alleged, it's breaking, it's developing, lots of caveats. And we're not telling you something that can't be backed up with some sort of source to where we can point to that is interesting. You have to understand, guys, a lot of the stuff is going to be BS, to Tim's point. 100%. It is. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's the hard part, trying to sort through all this. And that makes it really, really difficult and challenging for those of us that want to know what's going on to get to the root of the information. And then, people don't trust the government anymore with good reason. People don't trust the media anymore with good reason. So it just becomes more and more frustrating to try to understand what's happening in the world and how to, best protect our families and friends and businesses and homes and things like that, when we have this flurry of misinformation, incomplete information, and distrust between the citizenry, the government, and even the media. So I don't know, man, but it's going to be, I do want to stay on top of this. I want to see where all this goes, because I just hope that we don't have another Vegas situation where they do an investigation to a certain point and then they just go radio silent, and we're left wondering for years what actually happened in that hotel room, what actually happened in New Orleans, what actually happened in Queens, what actually happened in Vegas. We want to know. So the more information we get, hopefully we'll be able to bring that information to you guys. All right. Well, thank you for watching Second Legacy, folks, and we will talk to you guys soon.